My sister took my savings and spent them on her wedding. You're just a worthless man. Your only purpose is to provide for the family, not stash like a rat, she sneered. My parents just dismissed it. Stop complaining, you owe us anyway. Stayed silent, but when their debts started suffocating them, my phone exploded with 19 missed calls. The first thing you need to know about me is that I'm not your typical tech guy. My name is Jake, and at 27, I've carved out a life in Seattle, a city known for its coffee, rain, and tech giants. But here I am, living in a modest apartment far from the skyscrapers and startup hubs, with dreams bigger than the Space Needle itself. My family, well, they're a different story. There's Emily, my sister, who's always been the golden child. She's got the looks, the charm, and the knack for making our parents, Richard and Linda, beam with pride. They've never quite wrapped their heads around my choice to dive into the world of code and algorithms. To them, my job is just a bunch of numbers and screens, far less glamorous than Emily's world of fashion and flair. Family gatherings, they're a minefield of subtle jabs and not-so-subtle hints. "Jake, when are you going to settle down?" they'd ask, eyeing my empty ring finger with a mix of pity and expectation. "You're hoarding money like a dragon," my dad would chuckle, not knowing the truth behind my savings. But what they don't see, what they can't understand, is the fire burning inside me. Every penny I've saved, every late-night coding, every skipped social event, it's all for a dream. A dream to start my own tech company, something that could change the world, or at least change my world. Then, there was the day that changed everything. Emily's wedding plans, which were supposed to be the highlight of our family's year, turned into a nightmare. Emily's engagement to Mark, a local real estate developer, was the talk of the town. The wedding was set to be extravagant, something out of a fairy tale. Emily, with her flair for drama, decided she wanted a wedding that would be remembered for generations. She approached me one evening, her eyes gleaming with excitement and entitlement. "Jake, you've been saving up, right? I need your help. This wedding has to be perfect," she said, her voice dripping with expectation. I hesitated, explaining my plans for the money, but she cut me off. "You're just a worthless man. Your only purpose is to provide for the family, not stash like a rat," she sneered. I was shocked, but before I could respond, my parents chimed in. "Stop complaining, you owe us anyway." The weight of their words hit me like a ton of bricks. Here I was, trying to build something meaningful, something that could potentially lift us all, and yet they saw me as nothing more than a financial resource. My heart sank as I realized the depth of their entitlement, their lack of understanding or appreciation for my dreams. Reluctantly, I handed over my savings, but little did I know this was just the beginning of my family's financial downfall. The money, which I had painstakingly saved for my startup, was now funding an event that would become a spectacle of excess. Emily's vision was clear. She wanted a wedding that would outshine any other, with no expense spared. The venue was to be a historic mansion, the kind with sprawling gardens and chandeliers that would make even the stars in the sky jealous. She demanded the finest caterers flown in from Paris to create a menu that would dazzle the guests. Months passed, and Emily's wedding was the spectacle she envisioned. The historic mansion was transformed into a fairy tale setting, with every detail meticulously curated to impress. But as the celebrations dwindled, the reality of the costs began to sink in. Mark's business wasn't doing as well as he had boasted, and the wedding expenses were just the tip of the iceberg. One evening, I received a call from my mother, her voice trembling. "Jake, we need your help. The wedding, it's left us in debt. Can you—" I was silent, remembering the harsh words, the dismissal of my dreams. I told her I'd think about it, but inside, I was seething. The audacity to ask for more after they had already taken so much from me was infuriating. Then, the shocking event. I discovered that not only had my savings been used for the wedding, but Emily and Mark had taken out loans in my name, forging my signature. My credit was ruined, my savings gone, and now I was legally responsible for debts I didn't even know about. The betrayal cut deep, like a knife twisting in my gut. I confronted them, my voice shaking with rage. How could you do this to me? You've taken everything I've worked for, everything I've dreamed of. Emily's eyes were cold, devoid of any remorse. We needed the money, Jake. It was for the family, she said, as if that justified their actions. Mark, ever the smooth talker, tried to placate me. We'll figure this out, Jake. It's just a temporary setback. But I knew better. This wasn't a setback. It was a catastrophe. My dreams of starting my own tech company were now buried under a mountain of debt. The fire inside me, once a beacon of hope, was now a smoldering ember of anger and despair. With my life in shambles, I made a decision that would change everything. I couldn't let this go. I wouldn't let them destroy my future without a fight. I needed to take back control, to reclaim what was rightfully mine. The plan was risky, but I was determined. I confronted Emily and my parents. The room was tense, filled with accusations and denials. How could you do this to me? I demanded, my voice breaking. Emily's response was cold. We thought you'd understand, Jake. It's for the family. My parents looked away, unable to meet my gaze. I felt betrayed, but also a surge of resolve. I told them I wouldn't help, that I was done being the family's financial crutch. The air was thick with tension, the kind that makes your skin prickle and your heart race. I left that room, my mind racing with plans and counterplans. The next day, I started the process of legally separating my finances from theirs. I changed my passwords and informed my bank of the fraud. Each step felt like reclaiming a piece of my life, a piece of my future that they had tried to steal. As I sat in my small, cluttered office, surrounded by the remnants of my dreams, I felt a mix of relief and dread. The relief of taking action, of standing up for myself, was palpable. But the dread of what might come next, the unknown consequences of my family's actions, hung over me like a dark cloud. My phone began to ring incessantly, signaling the beginning of the end. Each call was a reminder of the chaos I was now entangled in. First, it was my mother, her voice a mix of panic and plea. Jake, please, we can work this out. Don't do anything rash. Then creditors started calling, their voices stern and unyielding, demanding payments for debts I never incurred. Mr. Thompson, this is urgent. We need to discuss your outstanding loans, one said, the tone leaving no room for negotiation. With each call, the reality of my situation sank in deeper. My family had not only taken my savings, but had also entangled me in a web of deceit that could potentially destroy everything I had worked for. But amidst the chaos, a spark of defiance ignited within me. I wasn't just going to sit back and let this happen. I had to fight, not just for my dreams, but for my dignity and future. My phone vibrated with 19 missed calls from my parents and Emily. I knew what they wanted, but I was prepared. I answered the last call, my mother's voice desperate. Jake, please, we're about to lose everything. I took a deep breath. I'm sorry, but I've been wrong too. I'm not bailing you out this time. The silence on the other end was deafening. I could hear Emily's muffled sobs in the background, a stark contrast to the usual entitlement that dripped from her words. Then, I dropped the bombshell. I've reported the fraud to the authorities. They'll be contacting you soon. The line went quiet, the kind of silence that speaks volumes. I could almost see the color draining from their faces, the realization hitting them like a cold wave. My mother's voice, when it finally came, was a whisper. Jake, You can't do this to us. We're family. I felt a pang of guilt, but it was quickly overshadowed by the memory of their betrayal. Family doesn't forge signatures, doesn't steal dreams, I said, my voice steady but cold. You've left me with no choice. The call ended abruptly, the dial tone a stark reminder of the chasm that now existed between us. I sat back in my chair, the weight of my decision heavy on my shoulders. My family's world was crumbling, and I had to decide what my next move would be. I looked around. My office at the screens filled with code, the whiteboards scribbled with ideas, the prototypes of what could have been my future. All of it was now at risk, not just from their actions, but from my own. The room felt smaller, the walls closing in as I contemplated my options. I could run, disappear, start anew somewhere else, but that would mean abandoning everything I had, worked for. Or I could stay, face the fallout, and perhaps, just perhaps, salvage something from this mess. I stood up, pacing the room. The decision wasn't just about me anymore. It was about justice, about setting a precedent that actions have consequences, even within a family. In the aftermath of the financial debacle, my family faced the legal consequences of their actions. Emily and Mark's marriage, once the epitome of fairy tale romance, now bore the strain of their financial misdeeds. My parents, who had always held their heads high with pride, were now humbled by the stark reality of their mistakes. Their once grand lifestyle was reduced to a shadow of its former glory. Their social standing crumbled like the facade of a once proud castle. I, on the other hand, chose to move forward. With what little I had left, I poured my heart and soul into starting my tech company. It was a venture focused on financial security software, a bitter irony given my own ordeal. Every line of code I wrote was a step towards reclaiming my life, my dreams, and my future. I worked tirelessly, driven by a newfound resolve to never let anyone dictate my path again. Years passed, and time had a way of smoothing over the sharp edges of betrayal. At a family reunion, the atmosphere was palpably different. The air was thick with a mix of regret and tentative hope. Emily approached me, her eyes reflecting a sincerity I hadn't seen in years. "Jake, I'm sorry for everything," she said, her voice softer, more genuine than I remembered. "You've done well for yourself." I nodded, accepting her words, but the trust that once existed between us was irrevocably broken. However, in that moment, I realized I had found my own path. I was no longer just the provider, the one expected to give without question. I was now a creator, a leader, shaping my destiny with every decision I made. As I looked around at my family, the dynamics had shifted. My parents, once dismissive of my ambitions, now looked at me with a mix of respect and regret. Mark, who had always been the smooth talker, seemed quieter, his confidence dimmed by the weight of their past decisions. And as I stood there, amidst the remnants of what once was, I realized something profound. Sometimes, the greatest strength comes from standing alone. Not in isolation, but in the ability to stand firm in your convictions, to carve out your own destiny and find peace within yourself. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment if you enjoyed this story. This will help us create more engaging stories for you.